When you sent me packing down Green River Valley, I knew that if you could...
Hey, this is Adam with Mile High Stash, the podcast that asks what 5 albums you would take to a remote Colorado cabin in the event of a zombie apocalypse. Thanks for the donations recently via milehighstash.com and also the reviews on Apple Podcast, which really do go a long way. It is Women's History Month, and our guest this week is Bridget Regan, the great violinist and founding member of Flogging Molly, who just followed up their last album, Anthem, with a brand new EP called Till the Anarchy's Restored. Along with violin, Bridget also plays the tin whistle and sings in Flogging Molly, which I'm sure you know is an Irish-American band that's about to celebrate 30 years since their first show. I think it took me a long time to get into Flogging Molly because I'm such a fanatic for the Pogues, and didn't realize, I think, how different the Pogues and Flogging Molly are until recently. And now I love both bands. Flogging Molly is much more in the sort of Irish but punk, like punk in the Anti-Flag and No Effects way, than the Pogues. And it's just completely different, and they're both great. I was able to interview Bridget while Flogging Molly was on stage, and you'll find out very quickly during our interview why that was possible. Anyway, Bridget is from Detroit. I'm from Pittsburgh, but both places have a very direct kind of personality. I remember hanging out a lot at a punk bar in San Francisco, or used to be a punk bar. Now it's kind of, I'm sure there are a lot of tech bros there, but it's called Zeitgeist. And when I moved there at age 21, the bartenders were very direct. There was this sign that said, "No patchouli," above the bar. And I was there once when they actually kicked someone out for wearing patchouli. That person might be listening to this episode, actually. They were always kind of like, "What do you want?" And I love that. No nonsense. It made me feel incredibly at home. Nobody trying to impress anybody. Nobody even capable of being impressed. And Bridget Regan is that way too. Even when I asked her the dumbest possible question about Flogging Molly, which got its start playing Molly Malone's in Los Angeles. Flogging Molly is in the midst of a ridiculously long tour right now, and the tour hits the Boulder Theater on March 12th. If you're around Boulder, I highly recommend stopping by Rising Tide Tattoo very soon, because they are simply the best tattoo shop around. Similar to how 105.5 The Colorado Sound is the best radio station around, and you can hear them online all over the world or at 105.5 around Boulder. Rising Tide won the Best of Boulder last year, the Boulder Weekly poll, and Rising Tide is also about to hold its annual Best of Boulder raffle, and all you have to do is take a picture of your Best of Boulder ballot and email it to risingtidetattoo@gmail.com, and you'll be entered in their annual contest. There's a $100 winner, a $200 winner, and the grand prize, a $300 tattoo gift certificate winner. I actually know the winner of last year's Rising Tide Best of Boulder Weekly raffle. So this is the real deal. You got to enter. risingtidetattoo@gmail.com. I'm going to shut up now so that you can hear my chat with the great Bridget Regan of Flogging Molly. My kid and I are going to Pittsburgh Pirates baseball spring training in Florida this weekend, and I got to get some work done before we leave.
This episode of Mile High Stash is brought to you in part by Rising Tide Tattoo Emporium, Boulder's premier tattoo shop. Rising Tide is led by the incredible Phil Bartell, who has been tattooing for over 25 years and is inspired by the Japanese tattoo lineage, Tibetan Tonka painting, and Art Nouveau. Book an appointment at Rising Tide with Phil or another of the shop's amazing artists who work closely with each client to make sure every piece is unique and true to their vision. Rising Tide welcomes walk-ins as well as appointments, so stop by today or head to tattooboulder.com.
Years of lies and hope, and I know you ain't coming back around.
Nice to see you.
How are you?
I'm doing good. I was just looking at your tour schedule, and my first question is, how do you do this with I mean, you're in the South, and then so you're going to go New York and New Jersey and then come back. So is it like ginseng or what? How do you take care of yourself on?
This tour, this is a bad example, since the guys are all obviously getting ready to go on stage now in about a half hour. I am unfortunately out of commission for the next 4 to 6 weeks. So,
Oh no.
yeah, I don't know if you obviously have not heard the news.
No.
Very first show of the tour, Austin City Limits. Dave and I got off stage, headed back out to the tour bus, and somebody had left a wet towel on the staircase leading up to the bus, and I tripped on it and fractured my shoulder.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
So yeah, I have not played a show since the first date, and yeah, hopefully I'll be back in the 4-week time limit that they gave me.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for the best.
Well, I'm hoping for the best too. Have you ever had an experience where you missed a string of shows like this before?
Not like this, no.
Wow. You guys are coming up on 30 years as a band, is that right?
Yeah, Dave and I are certainly over 30 years playing together. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm so interested to talk with you. I mean, everybody knows Dave's story. He's from Ireland. He moved to LA in his 20s. He played in a band with one of the guys from Motorhead, and then started Flogging Molly. But what is your story? Where are you from? What kind of music were you playing prior to being a founding member, right?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Detroit, to an Irish family. I have dual citizenship. And I grew up playing a mix of classical and traditional Irish music. I also went to LA in my late teens, and met Dave. And yeah, I think that the night we met, the next day we were playing music and writing songs together. So
Wow. Did you have experience playing in bands before that?
somewhat. I'd sat in with a lot of bands and a lot of other musicians, but I mean nothing like this, nothing where I mean it all I mean I'm sure a lot of musicians and bands and artists say this, but it honestly did. It happened like super organically. We met, hit it off, and started playing music together, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah. My impression was that it's kind of a mix of the Pogues and the Clash, but the last couple of days I listened, um, I'm hearing Irish music and no effects. It's more punk than the Clash, in the fast paced kind of thing. What was your exposure to both Irish music and maybe heavier music, punk rock music?
Yeah, growing up, it was just really old school trad. The I didn't really listen to the Pogues kind of until I was older, but I don't know if you've ever heard of a band called Horselips.
No.
They predate the Pogues. They're
Mm.
kind of the first band to really kind of combine trad with any sort of mainstream, more like rock music. Obviously it wasn't punk rock at the time because they were more 70s, but yeah, like the Chieftains, the Clancy Brothers, Planksty, Horselips. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one thing we had in common. Like when it came to Irish music, we both did kind of listen to the same things. Luke Kelly and the Dubliners, obviously, were huge influence, especially for Dave, but definitely on our songs and the way we put things together.
Do you feel like sort of the musical foot in Irish traditional music in Flogging Molly, maybe in a similar way that Spider Stacy's Penny Whistle is like that for the Pogues?
I mean, certainly this tour more than ever, because it became quite apparent when, I guess, taking me out of the equation for these last few shows and for the upcoming shows. Dave has really, really struggled. I don't know if they still are, but the guys, Dave first, he said it at a sound check, like everybody's hearing phantom fiddle and whistle, even though I'm not up on stage. It's crazy. And Dave's like, okay, you guys hear it too. I'm not losing mind.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. Dave is struggling, and yeah. He's saying, me not being up there, it's like it became apparent to him. He's saying that I'm the glue, and I'm like, well, shit, this should be interesting.
That must be sad that it's happening, but sort of nice to hear too.
It's torturous. As I said, I'm on the tour bus. Dave just went in. They're on at 10 o'clock, and I'm just sitting here having my nightly freak out.
Wow. Well, thank you for talking with me. And that might actually lead into this scenario that I want to ask you about, because it's about being in a situation that might freak you out. If you imagine that you were in Colorado, maybe on tour, and somehow got trapped in the mountains, and there was a zombie apocalypse, and all you had was food, water, and a crank-powered Victrola. What 5 albums would you want with you?
Oh God, I hate questions like this. Oh, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
I think to narrow it down to 5, I'd have to have a Beethoven symphony. 5th, 7th, or 9th, but I think I'd go 9th because it has everything. I'd go Planksty for some trad, and I'd go Planksty. Like Planksty was the name of their very first album. I'd have to do some Smiths, probably The Queen is Dead, maybe The Cure, Disintegration, and then let's throw in a Beatles album.
Nice. That has been a very popular recently, actually. Revolver has been chosen by.
Revolver is my go-to.
Yeah.
Everybody goes for Abbey Road or Let It Be, but Revolver is my favorite.
It might be because Revolver was kind of when they got weird.
I think they were always weird. They just stopped hiding it on Revolver.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, as you go on tour across the country, whether or not you're playing, you're still on tour. And do you have any memories of Colorado that kind of stick out from over the years?
Yeah, I mean, all tours kind of they become a blur after a while, and it's like, I don't know if we're getting old or we're just running out of room on the hard drive, and like you have to delete some to remember the new. But the first time we did Red Rocks, obviously, was a huge moment for all of us. It's such a special venue. So I'd go with that.
The view from the stage is actually, in my opinion, much better than the view from the seats. It's very special.
I agree, and I've seen both. It's not a bad day at the office.
Yeah. Tell me about this album that is coming up, the EP, and I'm not sure whether you worked with Steve Albini on the album from last year as well as the EP.
Yeah. So what happened was, yeah, just I don't know when we did it or why we did it. We just recorded kind of not new versions of, but just did some kind of live versions of a couple of old songs while we were in with Albini, just because it's electrical audio. We have Spencer on, banjo and mandolin, and Mike Alonso on drums, who had never recorded those songs with us originally. So we just decided to throw a couple oldies down, just, for shits and giggles. And then the single is just a song that we had and we had recorded, and it didn't make it on the album. Which honestly, it was my favorite, if not one of my favorite tracks, my favorite track that we recorded. And it always seems to work that way. My favorites are always the ones that don't make it on the album. So I'm just excited that it's seeing the light of day.
Is that song Anarchy? Yeah. In the wake of Trumpism and the pandemic and all of this sort of polarized America, is it tough or different, at least, to talk about things like anarchy in songwriting?
I think, I don't know, Dave's lyrics they always kind of speak for themselves and kind of tell a story and convey something in a more subtle way than actually being kind of vocal about your viewpoints or political viewpoints. I don't know. Personally, it bums, like I'm a huge, like, lifelong Smiths fan, and even Morrissey, but for whatever reason, he feels the need to be super vocal about a lot of opinions that most sane people wouldn't necessarily agree with. And it then becomes a case of having to separate the art from the artist. And it's never fun to do. So yeah, I don't know, I kind of went off track there with Morrissey. Yeah, I just talking about, I guess, those things outside the context of putting it into a song, I guess, is just not something we really are into doing. So
yeah,
thankfully Dave is really good at putting these things very subtly into beautifully written songs.
For sure. And I wonder whether, I'm from Pittsburgh, actually, so when I see the Anti-Flag is on the bill, I remember seeing them in high school at really small clubs, and there was always an element in punk music where you might find out that an element of your fan base is taking the lyrics in a way that you didn't intend. And so that was kind of the second part of my question. Has that ever happened with Flogging Molly, especially, in the last 6 years or so?
I mean, if it has, it's gone over our heads.
That's good.
At least from mine and Dave's perspective.
Yeah.
I mean, we were not active on, social media or stuff like that. There's, from time to time, someone will show us something. I don't know. It just seems to me, no matter what you do on social media, you're always going to find somebody that it pisses off, or somebody that feels the need to stir shit or make a shitty comment about something. But yeah, I guess we just do our best to ignore stuff like that. We know what the message we're trying to get across and where it's coming from, and it's coming from a place of honesty, and it's coming from a place with no bad intentions. So if somebody wants to do that, then you know what, let them, I guess.
That's a good lesson in mental health, is just staying off social media.
Yeah, it's their time to waste, not ours. So
yeah. a few days ago, Steve Albini caused a big controversy on social media because he did like a 12 tweet rant about how much he hates Steely Dan, and I just loved it. It made a lot of people angry and a lot of people gung ho about it. So I definitely, since you just worked with him, I wanted you to weigh in. What is your opinion on Steely Dan?
Um, I'm not gonna say anything bad about any bands, but that's a super Steve Albini thing to do, minus this whole social media part.
Yeah,
He's not yeah, he wouldn't really come across as a big social media guy. What was it, on Twitter?
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. He is very outspoken and he gives zero fucks.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I was kind of surprised listening to your work with Steve Albini because it sounds so. I want to say uh, fat and round and rocking, because he's known for these aggressive, the Pixies album and In Utero, and things like that, and it sounds very natural, organic.
I
You know.
mean, I think that's precisely the reason why we like working with Albini so much, and the reason why we wanted to go back to Albini. For one, it was just like coming full circle, but just in a way, going back to how we did those first two albums with him, um, it Flogging Molly is such a live band, and when recordings started to sound not like I mean, I don't think anything we ever did ever sounded overproduced by any standard, but just what Albini captures is like, I mean, we're doing most of these in 1 and 2 takes. Everything is kind of live when you're recording with Albini. It's analog. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of room for error. There's there's very little overdubs aside from Dave going in and doing vocals once we laid everything down. I mean, kind of what you hear is what you get. It's everything is done live, and I think that's kind of where this band shines. I mean, anybody can sit in a studio for 2 months and overdub everything and auto tune
Mhm.
everything. That's not what we wanted to do on this one. We just wanted to go back to basics, and um, there's I couldn't think of anyone better to do that than Steve Albini. Fight me.
Coming up on 30 years as a band, I mean, kind of on the note of what you're talking about, what did you guys learn in the early days with playing live so much and having a residency somewhere that you're still carrying with you to this day?
Um, I mean, that that doing residencies like that. I mean, that's how we're here today. That's how we're sitting on this bus. I think
Mm.
it's that and the Warp Tour that really, I mean, it was it was a super blue collar rise. The way
Mhm.
we did it, we didn't we did not skip any rungs on the ladder. That's for sure. But yeah, we put in the work, and yeah, I guess we're still here because of it. I think just in those foundations, I think that's what happens. Some bands, the ones that do skip any rungs on the ladder, it's a lot easier to fall, and you're either starting all over again, or it wasn't a thing to begin with.
All these years later, where is Molly? Is she alive?
Uh, Molly is the name is taken from a pub in LA called Molly Malone's.
The person that it was named after, though.
Yeah, that's it's like an old Dublin uh song
Aha.
called Molly Malone. There's actually a statue of Molly Malone off Grafton Street in Dublin. Um, but yeah, what year that would come from was I don't know offhand.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's Molly Malone's pubs everywhere.
It's
We've
like,
we've been to Molly Malone's in St. Petersburg in Russia. We've been to Molly Malone's in Greece. We've been to
oh, wow.
they're all over the planet. It's I think it's a fairly common name for an Irish pub.
That would be like me asking whether McDonald is alive or what McDonald is doing.
Yeah, I guess it's not a chain, but yeah, there are many.
Right. Yeah. What do Irish people think of Flogging Molly?
Um, yeah, Dave and I live in Ireland, and have done well. We moved to the country, so we're not really in the city very often. We play
Mhm.
Dublin once a year. Obviously, everybody in our village knows who we are and what we
Mhm.
do. I just, we do so well all over the rest of the world. Ireland's not really been, it hasn't exactly been the greatest to us.
Mhm.
So we're happy enough to, yeah, we'll play a show there once a year or so. And, you know, that's Dave's happy enough with that. When we get home, yeah, we just retreat to the country and are pretty quiet and left alone.
Yeah. Now I'm imagining the Banshees of Inisherin. Have you seen that yet?
We have, yeah.
I was just reading a bunch of his plays too. I mean, they're
His,
incredible.
his his plays are great. Yeah, that we've read them all, seen quite a few of them.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, we thoroughly enjoy it. We're big Martin McDonagh fans.
And does where you live look anything like the movie?
We are on the East Coast, and that was all filmed on the West Coast, so slightly different. No, it does not. I mean, we're in Wexford, right on the coast, on the East Coast. So yeah, we're looks a lot different.
And coming up on the 30-year anniversary, is that something that you've talked about, having some sort of anniversary events or releases of some kind?
No, we haven't. I mean, we've marked kind of anniversaries of albums and stuff like that, but
Mm.
because the band, the way it kind of was formed, it was like myself, Dave, and a different lineup.
Mm.
Everybody kind of joined at different times, so it's kind of, I don't know what we'd be marking.
Well, 30 years together as a band of some kind, and you're kind of the king and queen, you're still reigning.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, we hadn't really thought about it. We're always so busy touring. Obviously, the pandemic kind of derailed that
Yeah.
for a minute, but yeah, I guess honestly, we just hadn't really thought about it. Cause like, yeah, when you say it, it's like, Jesus, has it been that long?
Right. Is the Salty Dog cruise still happening, or did the pandemic kind of get in the way?
No, it's happening. We did it last year.
Oh,
And yeah, it'll again this year, November. It was sold out kind of a week after the bands were announced. People seem to be really excited to get back out there.
who picks the bands?
We do. We will put a list together,
Mhm.
and we'll put a very large list together, and then
Mhm.
it's like who's available.
Right. What bands are you excited about this year?
Um, well, all of them.
All of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's honestly, Dave and I had never set foot on a cruise ship until our own cruise. We were super reluctant to do it. We didn't think it was our thing. Um, we just honestly we were not fully on board. The very first one, and honestly it just took that one, and we were convinced. We're like, wow, it was completely the opposite of what we expected. It's I mean, obviously I can only speak from experience of ours, and that's the only cruise ship I've ever been on,
Mhm.
is our own cruise, but it's a floating festival.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all centered around the bands and the music and people that are all just super like-minded, and everybody's so happy.
Mm.
It's bizarre. It's like it's contagious. Yeah, it's really cool. Obviously not the most I guess environmentally friendly thing we could be doing
Right.
by any stretch of the imagination, but I mean, after the pandemic especially, we're just like, you know what, people need to have fun.
Hmm. And that's not something that I've ever done, and it's because I think I've only heard of like jam cruise, which makes me feel like I would jump ship, you know. So
Yeah,
maybe going on a cruise with a bunch of bands that I love. Um, and I don't know if this would actually be the case, but getting to hang out with the bands on the cruise too,
yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
Yeah.
uh, yeah, we're captive.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me, and it feels like an honor to interview you while Flogging Molly is on stage. It's kind of surreal, but
Yeah, they went on stage 2 minutes ago. This this is not, it doesn't get any easier. The other night I say we, we did the Ryman in Nashville, and that was especially torturous. That one, like, Dave didn't even want me in the venue. Why? He's like, just don't even come in. I don't even want you to see it. And I'm like, oh,
mm,
come on, Ryman, I have to.
that was going to be your first time playing there.
Yeah, yep. That's the first time the band's played the Ryman. Yeah. So I've um I've made our agent promise that we'll be back again next year. So
Yeah, that's awesome. Um, I did want to ask, how do you, um, it seems like, uh, I mean, not a cross to bear, but like, something that you could take seriously, if you want to, just being an American band and then at the same time carrying some sort of a torch or a legacy of Irish music around the world. How do you keep kind of a foot in that?
um yeah, for some strange reason, um Irish music has just kind of, there seems to be a, yeah, like it doesn't matter where we go. It's in Japan, it's huge, Germany, like all over Europe, and it's yeah. I guess it's just weird. We kind of do well everywhere but Ireland.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. People are super into it. It's just at the end of the day, I mean, it's a party.
Hmm.
That's the appeal.
That kind of reminds me of interviewing Los Lobos and them saying that they feel celebrated everywhere except Mexico, and they're carrying this foot in, Mexican traditional music.
I'd
But
say it's super similar. I'd say they know exactly how we feel.
yeah, well, the album from last year is just great, and in the EP, actually, these kind of live in the studio things, I just love that. I think the energy is tangible. So thanks for
Well,
putting that out.
yeah, thank you. We're super happy with the album. And yeah, hope everybody likes the new single as much as we do.
Yeah. And best wishes to you with recovery and getting back on stage.
Thank you so much. Fingers crossed. 3 more weeks. So yeah, hopefully I'll be on stage for the Colorado show.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, maybe there is a silver lining of some kind and you can enjoy the tour. Um,
I haven't figured out what that is yet, but I will continue looking.
all right. Thank you so much for talking with me.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Take care.
That was Bridget Regan from Flogging Molly. I feel so bad for Bridget. Not just the accident and the physical pain she must be in, but also that she's missing a long stretch of shows, really for the first time in Flogging Molly's 30 years. After our chat, the band actually confirmed that Bridget is out for the remainder of the tour with a right tuberosity fracture. But then she came back. She's like Kirk Gibson in the 1988 World Series. Um, the rest of Flogging Molly was trying to pick up her parts, and instead of hiring someone else, because Bridget really can't be replaced, and she made a miraculous comeback. And I keep thinking about things in baseball terms, because I'm about to go to spring training in Florida with my kid. But yeah, miraculous violin comeback and hitting home runs out there. So nice job, Bridget. Uh, anyway, thanks so much for listening, and make sure to get in touch at milehighstash@gmail.com if you have any questions or comments or concerns. I would be concerned if I was you, probably.
So you wanna rise above duality, you wanna